Where would you like us?
Wherever you want. You can sit here, you can sit over there. Sean, what do you prefer?
I'll sit next to Tobias.
You sit next, okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
Good to have you both on stage. Sean, I've read that you're passionately pro-business, and you underlined that a lot of time. You're passionately pro-business and solutions focused. So, because you're an entrepreneur, at some point you said an interesting sentence, ladies and gentlemen. So I read it out very slowly. The plastic crisis gives mankind a rare gateway to change both materials and systems to create a different future of next generations. Why do you see the crisis as an opportunity?
Thank you, and hi everybody. I love to think perhaps of the plastic crisis as being a gift, which might sound like a strange thing to say, but if we think of it as a gift, it's almost like this fossil fuel defibrillator. What we all need right now is to wake us all up, to understand the degree of change that we really need to impact very quickly. And the reason that as an entrepreneur and a highly unlikely eco-warrior, let me tell you, a massive plastic sinner, the reason that I am so obsessed by plastic for the last 9 years is I see it as a gateway to the climate crisis. It is, of course, solid fossil fuel. It is the reason that we can now consume at such giddy heights. It is the reason that we really have invented a single-use culture. And what I find exciting is not just the innovations that obviously we're talking about today, but also this opportunity for us to change systems. If we fix, and we will, fix the plastic crisis, we will directly and indirectly fix so much around the climate crisis because they are intrinsically linked. So when you hear, oh, but Sian, we'll fix the plastic crisis further down the road, it's all about carbon, we have to remember, and you had said some stats just now, the plastics industry, as a country, is the 5th biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, as a country. So when we think of plastic as being something that's carbon light, because it's a light material, we really have to think about its true impact from the minute it is extracted from the ground and all the toxicity that it creates then, to the fact it never has an end of life. I don't even know how we measure the impact of that, because it all still exists unless it's been burnt. And we know where burning fossil fuels has got us today. So that's the reason that I think the plastic is so interesting and can be such a catalyst for very positive change. It's undeniable. I haven't met a plastic denier. Other than maybe ExxonMobil, I haven't met a plastic denier out there. It's physical. It's something that we all feel a little bit bad about as humans when we go shopping and we fill our recycling bin yet again. And it's something that is very recent. Whereas carbon, I don't know. I can't see it, I can't feel it, I can't touch it. Plastic, we all feel bad about.
Tobias, can you agree on that, to see that as an opportunity? Because I just came back from I don't mention a name, but a European country, and I was driving along the road to the airport and to catch my flight, and the streets to the airport were like, I don't know, tons of plastic, and I really have some problems seeing it that way, to see that as an opportunity. It's just wasting our environment.
Yes, I agree on this point actually with Sean, because our field of working on is the plastic recycling, right? It's not the virgin plastic industries that is creating all the packaging that is partially responsible for sure for this highly consuming society, keeping all the goods fresh, like the bread, our sausages, and everything that we eat fresh for something like 2 weeks, transporting it in other countries. So definitely. The opportunities that I see in there is, one part is the recycling industries, creating a kind of circular economy around. There's no full circular economy with mechanical recycling, but a kind of circular economy around these materials. And also we are very operative in the Southeast Asian region and the South Asian region, where the plastic and the recycling and the collection of this plastic is one of the biggest employers, pretty much, because the consumption over there is as fast as we have it here in Europe. But in some countries like the Philippines, they are not drinking out of PET bottles like we do it here. They are drinking out of little sleeves, sachet bags made out of LDPE, pretty much, because this is what is offered there. So on the one hand, I see the advantage for bringing clean drinking water to these people. Of course, on the other hand, I see the chance also in getting it into recycling and focusing on the recycling of the material.
Sean,
Can I interrupt there? Do you mind?
Sure.
So I promised Tobias I'll be really kind because we have a slight conflict of opinion here. Because I think the problem
They
with
already had it backstage.
but I think tension is good, don't you? For me, the problem with our obsession with recycling is it stifles innovation. And because we continue to look at the wrong end of the pipe, the waste, and we keep thinking, oh, but waste is resource, surely we can give it a second life. I look at what plastic actually is. It is not something from the periodic table. It's not like aluminium or cobalt or calcium. It's not. It is a mixture of chemicals. And we know that many of those chemicals are toxic. And I can't think of another poison, another toxin that we try and give a second life to. So my pushback against recycling is, of course, we should collect it. Of course, we have a responsibility to go particularly to those countries that we have sent our waste to, in the most terrible example of waste imperialism, and we're still doing it from Europe and from the US. In the UK, we ship 60% of our plastic waste abroad still. 60%, 60, shocking. So of course we have to stop that, and of course we have to all deal with our own dirt, and we have to collect the waste that is out there. But to think that we can put it into this perpetual chain of recycling, I think is a chimera. And I think it has delayed real innovation, and we need to move to that fast.
Sure.
Yeah, I would actually, we had this discussion in the backstage already.
They were not fighting backstage. No, I don't want to make a wrong impression here, but they were focusing on controversy, let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I think this general story of plastic being a toxic, completely toxic material might not be the right narrative that we should reproduce here. There are toxic plastics, proven toxic plastics like PVC, like polycarbonate that is hormone active and so on and so on. This is also the reason why you don't find these in children's toys or in food packaging and so on. But there's also food-safe plastic. The thing about plastic and all these new materials and the innovation that, of course, everybody would love to have a non-fossil fuel-based new material that has no problems and that even just disappears after you consumed it, right, in terms of the packaging. Function fulfilled and now evaporize. I don't know. But there's maybe this will happen someday in future, and maybe this will be there, but for now, it's not. And packaging has, and I have to play a little bit devil's advocate here, because I'm definitely not pro-chemical industry or pro-virgin plastic and so on, but there is a reason and there is a function that the food packaging fulfills. Otherwise, our planet and our industry and our societies would not be able to feed as many people as we have in the world today.
Tobias, where can you mentioned that already, but where can plastic alternatives and bio-based chemicals meet the recycling sector? Where do you see that space, and how can they create some sort of synergies and act complementary?
I think that's my personal opinion, actually. When we speak about bio-based plastics, when you modify a material, it doesn't really matter if you take a fossil fuel source or a bio-based source. It matters in terms of carbon emissions and in terms of carbon and greenhouse gases for sure. But if you take a material, in terms of recyclability, if you take a material and take a different source, but modify it up to a way that it has exactly the same mechanical properties to save your food, for example, from rotten away, right? Then it's bio-based plastic made from cornstarch also holds something like 100 years up to 200 years before decomposting, if you do it in the way that it directly exactly mimics the mechanical properties like the other packaging.
Okay, that's an interesting. Sean, you recently founded another company, right? Is it a or is
Oh,
it,
yeah, an arm of a plastic
okay?
planet. Yes.
It's called plastic free.
Yes.
And it's described as a system solution platform for new materials. What is it exactly? Can you explain that
Yeah,
to
of
me
course.
so that I?
So over the last 9 years, we became doing a lot of work with some of the big consumer goods companies like Unilever and Kraft Heinz to try and help them fix their most pernicious plastic problems. Because as an entrepreneur, I don't think it's good enough to point out the problem and not help industry change. And we became very, very aware that there was this massive knowledge gap between the designers, the creatives, the architects of the world, and the solutionists, the new materials, the systems change. Because when people go to design school or even architectural school now, they are not trained in these new materials. So we wanted to see if we could build a platform that connects these two, that is packed with proof points and case studies and directly connects all the 160 million global creatives in the world to the solutions that are available today.
So is it a media brand or?
It's hosted on plasticfree.com,
Yeah.
and it's simply a connection platform to ignite, inspire, educate, and enlighten the creative industry. Because if you think about it, everything, what we're wearing, what we're sitting on, the building that we're in, the bottles that we're drinking from, everything is designed. If we could inspire the designers to create differently by connecting them with better materials, we can design plastic waste out at source.
Who knew about this? Plastic free.
I did.
Oh, okay, there's. Okay, so
We love Tobias again.
I think it's a great idea. It's a fantastic initiative. Congratulations. When did you start that?
So we launched it at World Economic Forum last year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, right place to start such an initiative. Let's move a little bit to the topic of legislation, because I do think I think we agree on that. That is one of the most important tools actually to influence reality. In your opinion, Tobias, what is the biggest leverage that legislation have on the plastics and chemical space?
There's a lot of things going on actually in the moment of developing new regulations in the plastic space, especially driven by European Union. For example, when it comes to the classical, and I speak out of the recycling goggles now, the classical recycling always has a problem that it's still, even though it should not, but it's still always linked in terms of pricing to virgin materials. It always should be a little bit cheaper. PET is a little bit outstanding there because it's a little bit unlinked to this logic, but there is a lot of legislation upcoming in terms of minimum recycling content in new products. And all of that, like 50% has to be recycled in every new bottle produced. These are instruments that artificially create the market logic around and stabilize the pricing around the recycled materials, which is, out of my perspective, you might not agree, very needed to create these markets and to keep them economically self-sustaining. Because something like 20 years back invented this narrative around, oh, waste is gold and everything, you just need to pick it up on the street and you can recycle it and it's all self-sustaining. This is not true.
It's not true, but that narrative is also dying out, right?
Yeah, but in other countries in the world, they're telling it still. Okay. Right? Where they don't factor in the external costs of the environment in countries like, I don't want to give an example, I want to drive anybody mad here, but there is
No, you should give us an example.
In countries like Thailand and Cambodia, for example, where we do a lot of work, in Cambodia, this narrative is still there. People still think that, okay, we don't need the EPR scheme, extended producer responsibility, to make companies bringing packaging into the market or plastic products in the market accountable for the costs that it takes to collect the material, to sort the materials. They are still thinking it's gold. People just should start their businesses.
So Tobias, when you go there, how do you counter that narrative? What do you do? How do you argue?
We always try to find, especially out of our advisory role, we try to speak with the government, with the ministries. We partially get hired by them and get a mandate actually to support them actually by finding solutions and integrate EPR schemes and implement EPR schemes in these countries. But in these countries, still the narrative is a little bit more, or is quite alive, that recycling and waste can be gold, and it's self-sustaining if you do it in a very efficient way with the economy of scales and so on and so on.
Okay.
It's true for aluminium, for example.
I think there is a different opinion.
No, not at all. Just an additional opinion, which I think one of the most exciting things for me that is happening in the world of policy right now is I was over at New York Climate Week last week. Twice I heard Ray Bonta, who is the Attorney General of California, talk about the fact that California are suing ExxonMobil.
Yeah.
And some of you may have heard about this, around plastic. And he spoke for 20 minutes. I have never heard somebody who is not in the world of plastics, he's the Attorney General, he has to know about a lot of things, so passionately about the lies and the deceit that ExxonMobil have been responsible for decades, talking about the fact that plastic can A, be continuously recycled, B, has no impact on human health. So it's very interesting that these lawsuits are now starting to happen, and I think this will be catalytic in industry's nervousness now, because of course we know the most terrifying word, being talked about a lot today, for industry is risk. And if you continue to use plastic as your default material, when you know the impact on human health, and we also are co-founders of the Plastic Health Council, we represent many of the global scientists with decades of experience about the known impact, the irrefutable impact on human health of all plastic, including PET bottles. And if you continue to use this, then risk is going to become a contingent liability that companies need to seriously consider to report on their balance sheets.
But has this information, because you're nodding, right? You heard about that as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Has this information made it to the news yet?
Yeah,
It's very big news.
Yeah, in Germany too.
Wow, okay. So there's another thing of controversy, or has been, and that is the topic of circularity. And when we were backstage and discussing about this panel, had a discussion about this panel, you raised the question, what is actually true circularity? And you had two very interesting perspectives on that topic. And since the next topic here on stage is going to be on circularity, I think let's close it with that question. What is, in your opinion, Tobias, and then Sian, true circularity, and what is untrue circularity?
Yeah, the true circularity around plastic, it's always, the big industries tell this story, but in fact, the circularity, it's an end. The circle has an end, right? It's not an endless circle. For PET, it's something like 10 times you can run it in a circle. For other plastics, it's different rounds that you can take. The material, also to be very fair, always does not get better. It's aging.
Right.
It's also
Gets worse, right?
It gets worse. Yeah, exactly. There's more microplastics than produced when as old as the material is. But I see it not as a place where where you always have to ban this material. I see also this is a space for innovation, but nobody put in the effort of this innovation still. When we speak about the new technology of chemical recycling, pyrolysis it's a process, it's 40 years old. It didn't change over the years. And now it's all in the news, so we go for chemical recycling for plastics and so on.
So what is true circularity in your words then?
I think is there something like true circularity when you can break it down to a molecule, to an atom, and can then put it together? This is what chemical recycling tends to do or wants to do. But in terms of mechanical recycling, speaking about the decarbonization, the chemical recycling has something like consumes or produces double of the CO2 emissions compared with the mechanical recycling. Still, half of what the virgin industry or virgin plastic has in terms of a carbon footprint, but it's even much more than the mechanical recycling.
Sian.
What is true circularity? For me, it is one word. It's nature. If you look around...
It's a very smart answer.
Honestly, that's a very smart and popular answer.
Yeah.
That's
but
true.
also, let's drill down a little bit further, because why is nature truly circular? Because there is no waste in nature.
Right.
Every single thing becomes the nutrient for the next stage of growth, including ourselves. And for me, when you hear the circular economy, yes, you know, all the big business, yeah, I believe in the circular economy. I've given £1 million to Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I just want to scream and say, just look at nature. Nature has everything. And what's so exciting, and I see we've got Benjamin from Sparksall speaking next, and that is an example of true circularity, borrowing from nature, not taking from nature, toxifying, giving it back something that is always going to be toxic waste. We need to take nutrients, we borrow them, we keep them safe, so when they go back to nature, they go back as nutrients. And what is exciting for me to see the innovation that is happening now, because we have been so lazy, we have not invented new materials for 50 years. But now we are leapfrogging some of the less bad materials, the PLAs, the bioplastics, to truly circular nature solutions. And it's very exciting for me to see here that some of them are being demonstrated, because this is where the money needs to go.
Fantastic statement. Thank you for the term borrowing from nature. I think this is a great expression. Thank you so much, Sutherland. Tobias Becker, thank you very much. It was his first appearance on a panel ever, and I think he did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make some noise for them.